My beloved brothers and sisters, when someone hurts you, the first reaction is often to explain yourself, to argue, to defend your pain, or to respond with the same emotion they gave you. But Islam teaches us a higher response, one that protects your dignity instead of feeding the situation. Not every wound needs a reaction, and not every hurt deserves your energy. Sometimes the strongest response is calm silence, not because you are weak, but because you are wise. When you stop reacting emotionally, you take away the power people think they have over your heart. You choose control over chaos, patience over impulse, and faith over ego. This reminder will show you how to respond to hurt with strength, how to protect your peace without revenge, and how to let Allah handle what you no longer need to carry. Because when someone hurts you, your power is not in hurting them back, it is in rising above with dignity and trust in Allah. Do not react from emotion. When pain strikes suddenly, emotion rushes forward before wisdom has time to speak. The heart feels wounded, the mind becomes restless, and the tongue feels pressured to respond immediately. Islam teaches us to pause at this exact moment. Not every feeling deserves an instant reaction. Emotions are real, but they are not always reliable guides. When you react from emotion, you often speak from hurt rather than truth. Words said in pain may feel relieving for a moment, but they often carry regret that lasts much longer. Allah teaches us self-control because He knows the damage unchecked emotion can cause. Strength is not found in instant response, it is found in restraint. When you pause, remember Allah and delay your reaction, you protect your dignity. You give your heart time to settle and your mind time to regain balance. This pause is not weakness, it is obedience. It is choosing faith over impulse and wisdom over temporary relief. Emotional reactions often deepen wounds instead of healing them. When someone hurts you, your immediate response may escalate the situation, turning pain into conflict. Islam teaches us that escalation rarely brings peace. A calm heart sees clearly, but an emotional heart sees only the wound. When emotions take control, the ego demands defense, justification, or retaliation. But the ego does not heal the soul. Allah calls us to rise above the ego by practicing sabr in the moment of provocation. Sabr is not passive suffering, it is active self-control. When you resist reacting emotionally, you take back control of your inner state. You stop allowing others to dictate your behavior. This control protects your character and preserves your faith. Over time, you realize that many situations resolve themselves when you do not fuel them with emotional reactions. Reacting emotionally often places your peace in the hands of others. Your mood rises or falls based on what they say or do. Islam teaches independence of the heart. A believer's peace should be anchored in Allah, not in people's behavior. When you react emotionally, you hand power to the one who hurt you. When you pause, you reclaim that power. Silence and restraint remove the reward of reaction. Many people provoke others not for truth, but for response. When no reaction comes, the provocation loses its force. This is wisdom. Allah loves those who control their anger because anger clouds judgment and weakens faith. By not reacting emotionally, you protect your iman from being damaged by temporary feelings. The Prophet ﷺ was harmed, insulted and rejected, yet he mastered emotional control. His reactions were guided by revelation, not by impulse. This prophetic example teaches us that emotions should be acknowledged, not obeyed blindly. Feeling hurt is human. Acting from hurt without wisdom is dangerous. Islam allows emotion but disciplines expression. When the believer follows this path, their responses become measured and meaningful. They speak when speech benefits and remain silent when silence protects. This balance preserves honor. Emotional restraint transforms pain into dignity. It allows Allah to handle matters beyond your control. Emotional reactions often demand immediate justice, but Allah's justice operates on perfect timing. When you react emotionally, you may rush ahead of Allah's plan. Patience allows Allah's wisdom to unfold. Many times, what feels urgent is not actually necessary. When you wait, clarity emerges. Emotions fade, but consequences remain. Islam teaches us to delay action when emotions are high, because clarity comes with calm. This delay is mercy from Allah. It protects you from decisions that may haunt you later. The believer learns that not every feeling needs expression. Some feelings need healing through remembrance, prayer, and silence. Reacting emotionally can also distort intentions. You may begin to act not to please Allah, but to satisfy the ego or prove a point. This shift weakens sincerity. Islam values intentions deeply. When emotions dominate, intentions blur. By pausing, you realign your heart with Allah. You ask yourself whether your response will bring reward or regret. This reflection strengthens faith. It trains the soul to prioritize obedience over impulse. Over time, this discipline becomes a habit, and the believer grows calmer, wiser, and more resilient. Emotional restraint also protects relationships. Many relationships are damaged not by the original hurt, but by the reaction to it. Harsh words spoken in anger can destroy trust quickly. Islam values harmony and reconciliation. By not reacting emotionally, you keep the door open for healing. Silence allows space for understanding. Even if reconciliation does not happen, your character remains intact. Allah rewards character even when outcomes are painful. Preserving character is more valuable than winning an argument. When emotions are high, Shaitan finds opportunity. He whispers exaggeration, fuels anger, and pushes the believer toward regretful actions. Islam teaches remembrance at moments of anger precisely because it interrupts this influence. Saying "A'udhu billah" and stepping back creates distance between emotion and action. This distance protects faith. The believer learns that control in moments of hurt is a shield against spiritual harm. Emotional restraint is not suppression, it is protection. Over time, the believer who practices emotional control experiences inner strength. They are no longer easily shaken. Hurt still comes, but it does not dominate. This strength brings peace. Peace improves worship. Worship strengthens connection with Allah. This cycle builds a stable heart. A stable heart does not react impulsively. It responds thoughtfully. This response reflects maturity in faith. In the end, not reacting from emotion is an act of trust in Allah. You trust Him with justice, healing, and outcomes. You choose calm over chaos, patience over impulse, and faith over ego. And when you master this choice, you discover that true strength is not loud or reactive. It is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted in Iman. Silence can be a powerful boundary. Silence is often misunderstood as weakness, but in Islam, silence can be one of the strongest boundaries a believer sets. When someone hurts you, pressures you, or crosses your limits, you may feel obligated to explain yourself or defend your position. Yet silence says more than words ever could. It communicates self-respect without aggression and firmness without hostility. By choosing silence, you refuse to engage in exchanges that drain your peace. Allah teaches us that not every situation requires a response. Some situations require distance. Silence creates that distance without cruelty. It protects the heart from being pulled into unnecessary conflict and preserves dignity when emotions run high. This form of silence is intentional, not fearful. It is rooted in trust that Allah sees, hears, and understands. When you remain silent with clarity, you place a boundary that says your peace is not available for harm. Silence becomes powerful when it replaces emotional reaction. Many people provoke others hoping for a response. They want words, explanations, or visible pain. When silence meets provocation, the cycle breaks. The believer denies negativity the attention it seeks. Islam teaches us not to feed conflict. Silence starves it. This restraint prevents escalation and keeps the heart calm. A calm heart is closer to Allah than a reactive one. Silence allows the believer to step back, reflect, and choose wisdom over impulse. This choice strengthens faith. It shows mastery over the self, which is a form of jihad. The Prophet ﷺ, reflect and choose wisdom over impulse. Silence, in this sense, is not absence, it is control. A powerful boundary does not need to be announced. Silence works quietly but effectively. When you stop responding to disrespect, you teach others how to treat you without confrontation. You make it clear that certain behavior will no longer receive access to you. This clarity protects your emotional and spiritual well-being. Islam values clarity because it prevents ongoing harm. Silence sets limits without inviting argument. It keeps the believer safe from saying words they may regret. Words once spoken cannot be retrieved, but silence preserves the record. Allah loves those who restrain themselves when provoked, and He rewards that restraint generously. Silence also protects sincerity. When you explain yourself repeatedly, intentions can shift from pleasing Allah to pleasing people. Silence removes that temptation. You no longer feel pressured to justify your choices or emotions. You place your trust in Allah's knowledge rather than people's understanding. This trust strengthens Iman. The believer learns that not being understood by everyone is not a loss. Being understood by Allah is enough. Silence reinforces this truth gently but firmly. In many situations, silence is a form of self-care. Islam permits. The heart has limits. Constant dialogue with hurtful people exhausts it. Silence allows the heart to rest. Rest restores clarity. Clarity strengthens faith. Islam does not demand constant availability. The Prophet ﷺ withdrew at times for reflection and peace. This teaches us that stepping back is not abandonment, it is balance. Silence creates space for healing that arguments never allow. Silence also protects relationships from permanent damage. Words spoken in anger often leave scars that cannot be erased. Silence prevents these scars. Even if the relationship does not heal, the believer's character remains intact. Allah values character over outcome. Silence ensures that dignity is preserved even when closeness is not possible. This preservation is mercy toward the self and toward others. Some people fear silence will be misunderstood, but Islam teaches us that intention matters more than interpretation. When silence is chosen for peace, Allah records it as wisdom. People may think what they want, but their thoughts do not define your worth. Silence frees you from the burden of managing perceptions. This freedom brings calm. Silence as a boundary also limits manipulation. Manipulation thrives on conversation, explanation, and emotional response. Silence removes these tools. The believer regains control over their emotional space. This control strengthens self-respect. Self-respect reinforces faith. Allah does not want His servants emotionally exposed to harm. Over time, silence reshapes the believer. They become less reactive, more observant, and more composed. Their presence carries weight without noise. This composure reflects inner strength. Strength rooted in faith is stable and enduring. Silence nurtures this strength quietly. In the end, silence can be a powerful boundary because it protects peace, preserves dignity, and keeps the heart connected to Allah. It does not seek victory over others, it seeks safety for the soul. And when silence is chosen for the sake of Allah, He fills it with wisdom, strength, and lasting peace. Distance heals what arguments cannot. Many people believe that healing comes from talking more, explaining more, or arguing until they are understood. But Islam teaches us that some wounds do not heal through words at all. They heal through distance. When emotions are raw and pain is fresh, arguments often deepen the injury instead of resolving it. Each word becomes a weapon. Each response fuels more misunderstanding. Distance, however, allows the heart to breathe. It removes the believer from the source of harm and gives space for calm to return. This space is not abandonment, it is wisdom. Allah does not require you to remain in places that continuously hurt you. Distance creates an environment where reflection replaces reaction. In that quiet, the heart begins to settle and healing can finally begin. Arguments usually come from the desire to be understood, but understanding cannot be forced. When someone has already chosen not to listen, no amount of explanation will change them. Islam teaches us to recognize when effort turns into exhaustion. Distance protects the believer from wasting emotional energy on people who are not receptive. It preserves dignity and prevents regretful words. When you step back, you regain control over your inner state. This control strengthens faith. Allah values restraint more than endless debate. Distance allows Allah to work on hearts in ways arguments never can. Distance also allows perspective to return. When you are constantly engaging, emotions stay heightened. Hurt feels louder, anger feels justified. But when distance enters, clarity follows. The believer begins to see the situation more objectively. They recognize patterns, boundaries, and truths that were hidden in emotional noise. Islam values reflection because reflection leads to wisdom. Distance gives space for reflection. It allows the believer to reconnect with Allah through dua and remembrance instead of constant conflict. This reconnection restores peace. Arguments often aim to change others, but distance focuses on healing the self. Islam teaches that you are responsible for your actions, not for controlling others. Distance shifts attention inward. It allows the believer to ask, what does my heart need to heal? Rather than how do I make them understand? This shift is powerful. It moves the believer from desperation to stability. Allah strengthens those who protect their hearts with wisdom. Distance becomes a form of self-respect guided by faith. Some people fear that distance is unforgiving, but Islam distinguishes between forgiveness and access. You can forgive without remaining exposed to harm. Distance does not mean hatred. It means boundaries. It allows forgiveness to be sincere rather than forced. When you remain too close to ongoing harm, forgiveness becomes resentment in disguise. Distance gives forgiveness room to breathe. It allows the heart to release pain gradually. Allah loves hearts that forgive without destroying themselves in the process. Distance also interrupts unhealthy cycles. Arguments often repeat the same patterns without resolution, the same words, the same pain, the same outcome. Distance breaks the cycle. It stops the repetition and creates a pause. In that pause, Allah places wisdom. Sometimes hearts soften only when silence replaces noise. Distance gives Allah space to intervene. Many conflicts resolve not because of words spoken, but because space allowed reflection. Distance protects character. Arguments can pull the believer into behavior they later regret. Harsh words, raised voices, and wounded pride damage the soul. Distance prevents this damage. It allows the believer to remain calm, respectful, and faithful. Allah rewards those who protect their character even when hurt. Preserving character is more valuable than winning any argument. Distance supports this preservation. Distance also heals the body and mind. Emotional stress affects sleep, focus, and health. Islam values well-being because it supports worship. A disturbed heart struggles to pray with presence. Distance reduces stress. Reduced stress restores balance. Balance strengthens Iman. This change shows why distance is sometimes necessary for spiritual health. Some relationships can heal only after space is created. When distance is respected, communication later becomes healthier, calmer, and more sincere. Even if reconciliation does not happen, the believer emerges stronger and more peaceful. Islam values peace over forced closeness. Closeness without respect is not closeness at all. Distance restores respect. In the end, distance heals what arguments cannot because it removes noise, restores clarity, and protects the heart. It allows Allah to replace chaos with calm and pain with wisdom. When distance is chosen for the sake of Allah, it becomes a means of healing, strength, and lasting peace. Do not seek closure from the one who caused the wound. One of the deepest mistakes people make after being hurt is searching for closure from the very person who caused the pain. The heart hopes that an explanation, apology, or final conversation will bring peace. But Islam teaches us that peace does not always come from answers. Sometimes it comes from acceptance. When someone wounds you, they are often unable or unwilling to heal you. Expect